as long as I'm seeking out people that are smarter than me and I'm sitting next to them and shutting up and listening, things have always gone my way.
You're listening to Protect It All, where Aaron Crow expands the conversation beyond just OT, delving into the interconnected worlds of IT and OT cybersecurity. Get ready for essential strategies and insights. Here's your host, Aaron Crow.
Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Protect It All podcast. Today, I've got my friend Sean here. It's funny, I say friend. We're in such a small community. I know of Sean. We've met once, but it's such a small community, and we fight for the same thing. So everybody in the OT environment, I really claim, and that are doing the right fight, I really call friends. That wasn't a negative thing towards you, Sean, or anything like that. It's really awesome to be in the room with some amazing people like you and others that I get to be part of, whether it's on the podcast or in person. So Sean, please, thank you for being here, and please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, your background, all that kind of fun stuff.
First, thanks for hosting this. I saw when you launched online and I was like,
thank you.
Yeah. So myself, so Sean Tufts, I'm a field CTO at Claroty. My background is a weird one. Started my career as an NFL linebacker, which was, you can see from my accoutrements in the back. Definitely not the path to IT security. I told them the other day, they were like, "Why'd you quit football?" Like, assuming it was my choice. I said, like, the collective will of 32 teams. They were like, "You're done," and I was like, "That's fair." So I said I didn't want to work in tech. I didn't want to work in oil and gas, and I didn't want to work in sales. And then I did all three of those things the first 3 years after football, which was awesome. I live in Colorado. We had a little farm north of Boulder. Started my career in wind farm development because I thought that'd be awesome. So I was a landman, like running out to Wyoming and Texas and assembling land positions. That was the first time I heard the word SCADA. Turned that into a job at GE in the midstream section. Turned that into a job in cyber. And from that moment, bam, things just started clicking for me and just really felt natural, which was cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, that is definitely a different path from one extreme to the other. But it just goes to show, like, my background is a little different. Obviously, I did not play in the NFL, believe it or not. But it's started out in technology and IT, and I really came into this space. But the knowledge and things that we bring into this and the experiences that we have, it gives us a different perspective on things, and we approach problems differently. We're able to approach people differently, right? And even if it's just open the door, I got a funny side story that kind of aligns with that is I worked for a power utility in Texas, and we bought a power company from another company. We bought it from NextEra. And one of the main guys that was at the site, he did not like us. Like, he didn't want us coming in. He managed the cybersecurity and the NERC SIP, and he just thought we were going to come in and break his stuff, right? He didn't like me personally. Like, he just did not like me at all. And one day I'm sitting in his office and I've tried everything. I've brought donuts and food and coffee and everything I can think of. And I'm sitting in his office, and I look up and I see on the wall, he's got a picture of him in a gi, like in a jiu-jitsu gi. And I was like, you do roll jiu-jitsu? And he's like, yeah, kind of like with an attitude. I'm like, okay, well, I've been rolling for a couple of years. I said, it looks like you're a blue belt, so I'm just a white belt. But, as soon as I said that, he was like, he opened his kimono literally and, started talking to me. We talked for like an hour about jiu-jitsu. And from that point on, he was like, okay, maybe this guy isn't so bad. Like, so it's funny that jiu-jitsu, even though I was just a white belt, he was a blue belt and now a purple belt. But it's funny how those little interpersonal things were able to open a door that I could then get him to listen and consider what I was trying to push and implement on the architecture side for why I was doing this OT program and why we wanted to change things and all that kind of stuff. It built that trust that allowed him to actually listen to me and see me as a human instead of just an asshole.
Yeah, in locker rooms, we used to call it women in Wu-Tang. We had to have something that would cause a spark. And that spark might go in any direction. I mean, it could be a little wrestling. It could be like connecting over music, right? Like, the fastest way to start a fight in a football locker room is to turn off Wu-Tang and turn on Willie Nelson. That will get a mosh pit going faster than you can imagine. So it's interesting you say the team part. I spend a lot of time evaluating, like, hey, who's on this project, right? Do we have the right personas? Do we have the right people? And that all comes from assembling teams and getting the right people plus making sure you've got people that are going to do their role, people that are good at their role, and people that want to do their role. And all three of those things are really, really, really important because you can't all be quarterbacks. You can't all be all linemen. You got to be you have to have that like diversity of thought, diversity of experience, diversity of like what you bring to the table. And that's how you make a good team. You don't make a good team off of straight, like 11 Tom Brady's would get destroyed. And you gotta have that mix. So I do a lot of talking about like who we have in this project. Is this right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's amazing. So many stories come around this, but you can have, to your point, the Tom Brady conversation, right? It doesn't matter how smart you are. If you can't work with people, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter how great your idea is, but you have to sell the person. You have to make that connection to be able to push the thing through, which is why from a technical background coming in, I always wanted to be the smartest person, the smartest on the whatever Microsoft or Active Directory or Cisco or whatever the thing is. But it doesn't matter how smart I am if I can't convince, the owner, the manager, the supervisor, whoever's responsible to let me do the thing or upgrade it or need the budget or whatever. So that's a constant battle that we're fighting in OT. And I think so many times in the cyber world around OT, we push it from the wrong way. We push it from, hey, China's attacking us, or you're going to get taken over, or all these types of things, the fear selling, right? And sometimes that works. But most of the time, the guy looks at you like, I've been running this plant for 40 years and I've never had that happen. Try again.
I'm going to outlast you because I'm going to be in my people and you're going to be knocking on my door.
Exactly.
You said you wanted to be the smartest person in the room. It's funny. I always took a different approach. I always wanted to be the dumb, which was always like, as long as I'm seeking out people that are smarter than me and I'm sitting next to them and shutting up and listening, things have always gone my way. And there was a phenomenal team that we had at GE when I was there on the cyber side. I was a part of the World Tech thing when we scaled. And man, my mentors then are my mentors now. And it's so much fun to watch these careers, GE screwed up, to watch these careers like explode out, and like all the people at Fort and all the people at, at Claroty, all the people all over the world that are just doing awesome stuff in this community. It's really cool to see those mentorships still grow.
Yeah, it's funny. My younger career as a more junior person, to your point, I always wanted to be the smartest person in the room. And then I realized, hey, that only gets you so far. And those softer skills and being mentored by others that are smarter than you, being mentored by, and not just from a technical perspective, mentored from people that understand the business acumen, like all of those aspects come into those things. It took me a while to realize that. And that was ego and, naivety and all of the things that come with being, 18, young and dumb along the way. You think you're so smart, but you're really not. I've got a 17-year-old now, and I know exactly from the flip side of what that looks like. So how are you guys approaching that? From obviously OT is huge. OT products in the space are big. It's not going away. We've been doing this. I've been an asset owner since 2010 before there were any OT products. Now there's OT products all over the place, which is amazing. Yet I still walk in as a consultant to places that have no OT monitoring, no asset inventory, no classification. Like they have very limited budget. They may have a firewall. They may have segmentation. Many times they classify segmentation as a VLAN with one firewall rule using one interface on a firewall. Like I've seen it all. Like where are you seeing the value? Obviously the big guys are doing it, but so many others I still feel like we're behind the 8 ball in so many spaces.
The thing I'm excited about that I'm seeing is 3 years ago is like 1 or 2 site pilot. They didn't really know if we were going to do or not. They were like, hey, why don't we try this? We don't have a big budget. We're starting to see those flip into 200 site. And There's a couple of things that have happened there. Number one, like the industry, the software providers, us and our Claroty and our competitors, we've all matured and we grew. The stuff we're doing today in the cloud, if you had told me 3 years ago we were doing 200 sites from a cloud delivered SaaS app, I'd be like, no way, we're not doing that. And we're doing it. We're doing scale. It's awesome. It's not in your heavy, actually oil's turning, man. Oil's a little different. It's not power yet. Oil's starting to creep up in the number count from our on-prem solution to our SaaS solution, and it's going well, and we're going big.
Yeah.
So I think that's the piece that I'm seeing right now is a lot of those trial projects are starting to flip, and we're starting to get more and more traction. I think the other thing I'm really excited about is we're starting to figure out how to walk across the aisle and talk to the OT people better. Because before, I know I've done this. I know hundreds of other people. I'm assuming you've done it. Where you walk over and you said it earlier. Hey, we're going to change how you do things. No, you're not. But walking over and say, hey, we bought this cool cyber tool. Here's what we're responsible for. And here's what we're going to claim. Here's what you're responsible for. And it's very, very little. And starting to get them comfortable with what's there, and then watching that light bulb turn on for them and being like, oh, I don't have to do a spreadsheet anymore. This is great. But it comes with that brokerage of trust where you're committing your ass on the line just as much as they're committing theirs. And if you get that partnership, you're good.
Yeah. Yeah. I say it a lot too, is you do business at the speed of trust. The faster you build that trust, the faster you're able to, start pushing that line and do more and more and more, right? You have to build that trust. It doesn't come by default. Like it's earned, especially in OT. And many times it's because some guy before you 5 projects ago promised the world and didn't deliver, and it caused havoc. And they've been, backtracking from that, and their bonuses got impacted, and they got written up, or they got screamed at, or whatever that looks like. And they still remember that because, like we said earlier, they've been there for 40 years. They've seen people like you and me come and go 100 times, right? So how are we different? How are we going to, it's that trust but verify, right? So we have to come in, and they're assuming we're full of it before we even say a word.
And what's gone really well that I thought wouldn't too? Active scanning. I mean, we do everything in the world to not call it active scanning, but if you do it right, it goes. And if you can get it on a protocol basis and only interrogate that machine on the protocol it wants, it goes fine.
Yep. Well, the irony of that is I've screamed about this for years, and I won't call out names, but there's certain people that I literally had to block on LinkedIn because they just basically trolled me and talking about, active and all that. I'm sure you could probably figure out who that is. But anyways, in 2010, again, I was an asset owner at a power utility in Texas. There were no OT products. Nothing existed. Dragos didn't exist. You guys didn't exist. Nozomi didn't exist. Like, these things weren't exact. Like, maybe Rob was working on it. Maybe, we were working on it in a paper, but there was nothing on the shelf that I could buy. So I bought IT products, Forescout, Counteract, and NAC, and rolled that out into OT spaces at power plants, at nuclear power plants, at coal-fired power plants. And I was scanning those networks. I was very intelligent about it. I wasn't just in-map scanning my entire environment, and I knew what devices to exclude, and I knew which networks to monitor and which ones to not, and the kind of the things to do. But it's always driven me nuts when people say you can't do active in OT. You absolutely can. You can't do it like you do in IT, where you just scan the world because it's expected to do that, but you can do that. And the other frustrating part to that is that you go into these spaces as a consultant, and obviously we work with you guys and all of the products that are in the space, and you go to a company and they want the data and the capabilities of what active scanning can get them, but they only want to do passive. You roll out passive, and then they're pissed off because I want to know the firmware and the serial number, and like, okay, but it didn't say that in the packet. So how do you expect me to get that across a packet when it didn't tell it? Like, that's not the product's fault. You put in Claroty, Nozomi, Dragos, it doesn't matter the product. That's a limitation of the packet that you're monitoring. And they just don't seem to grasp that.
We have a big problem, not a big problem. One of our problems is if we release our asset data too soon to the operational side, it can not stop a project, but we'll lose that person. So and we do a lot, right? Passive, you have to have enough time. You got to do all that stuff. If we turn it over to the asset owners real quick, they can step in and be like, oh, well, this is clearly garbage. You call the Rockwell 123 a Rockwell 456. Like, you're idiots. Like, well, no, we just need can we get another week, please? And then we'll come back. But man, if you lose that person, that first window, that first commercial, if you have one typo, you're out. And I think that we're starting to overcome that a little bit. It's becoming easier. And honestly, active is helping with it, because then we can say, oh, wherever the deployment is, like, well, let's get more data. Here's how we could do it. Do you want to be right? And then sometimes they go well with that. Sometimes they don't. But yeah, we spend a lot of time and effort, like, harboring it before we release it.
You have to. I fought that battle for you, with you, all along the way, and all of the vendors in the space. And it's something that we've got to continue to get the message out that, to your point, like, we don't call it active. We call it interrogation. We call it whatever word you want to use. We're actually saying, hey, who are you? What are you? What do you do? But we're speaking the language, to your point. We're speaking the protocol that PLC is expecting. I'm not hitting it with, Nmap and all the different ports. I'm talking to it on Modbus or Profinet or whatever the thing is. And then it's fine with that. It doesn't care. As long as you're not, denial of servicing it, at 1,000 packets a second, it's fine. It just tells you who the hell it is and all the things that you want to know about it. And then everybody's happy.
Yeah. And that's been an interesting thing to watch knock down. and people start to dude, you can see in an engineer's eyes too, when you're talking to them and you're like, well, this is how we're going to do that. And once you get down the list and you show them like, you can click on the things you want and you can unclick the things you don't. They're like, oh, you get it. Yeah. We do.
Yeah. You turn that off. You turn this on. I'm talking to it like this. So the other piece to that, talking about active, talking about, a lot of these networks and the way they are, the segmentation is a big one that I still see an issue with. And when I say issue, like I mentioned to it earlier, like some people look at segmentation as a VLAN. Other people don't segment at all, or their segmentation is I've got a firewall on the edge of my OT environment segmenting me from the IT environment, but everything inside is wide open. It's just a big flat network. And I've got so many examples of how that's an issue. I see that's something that you guys are approaching as well. So how is that working? How is that being perceived or received by the OT folks? And how are they seeing the value in that? In their minds, they're probably saying, oh, this is going to make it more complicated. This is going to make it harder for me to troubleshoot. Like all of the things, I can hear the voices and the naysayers coming back at you.
So I think you can't have a segmentation conversation without talking about money. And unfortunately, those are just big, expensive projects. And I remember very clearly getting in a fight actually with a person at Claroty, Mark Cervantes. We got in a fight over like what should go first, segmentation or an asset inventory tool. The thought, both teams wanted to do their own thing, right? The firewall guys wanted to come in and build the segmentation, and then the network guys wanted to see what was there so we could segment properly. We're finding that we're doing both of those at scale. So now that we have enough data in the Claroty platforms and the Dragos and all the other stuff in the Cisco platforms, like in all the native things, now that we can properly identify who's talking to what, the segmentation project gets a lot faster. Because now we're saying, okay, we saw 2 years of traffic and A always talked to B and it never talked to C. There's your segmentation break. And that's gone a lot easier. We had a client recently that set up 2 versions of Xdome, and they were re-IPing an entire factory. And that meant they were ripping it down, burning it, and then building it back up. And they were actually using us in a way I didn't expect. So they built 2 Xdomes. They had the old one, and when they burnt it down, they'd move a device, they'd move it over, and then they'd repopulate it, and they'd ask us, do you see it? And then we started building out the network detection piece on the new environment, A/B testing the old. So we could say, hey, wrong VLAN, or this port's open, or why is this thing not named? And then why is there stale credentials? Somebody left the admin one, right? So we're able to look at that like a real, not auditor, that's not the right word, but like, some sort of double checker to make sure that.
Yeah, trust but verify, right?
Yeah, we are the verify in that segmentation project. Right. So that's been going really well. I think being able to automatically, through software, build out profiles and then being able to lift and shift them to a NAC, that's been really valuable too, because we can just push that whole policy over. Number one, do it passive mode and say, in an alert only mode, just say, if you see a violation, tell us. And if that goes well, 3 months, put it into production, see what happens. Now you've got enough data.
Right. That's where we start making big changes, right?
Well, again, though, but the whole process there is not some magic of software. It's earning the trust of the operators because you've been speaking their language for 2 years.
Right.
You got to see that.
Yeah. And you've been there, you haven't broke their stuff. You understand how their business is working. You're helping them. And that's the other piece is you're not just asking, give. I'm giving as well. Like I'm giving to you. I'm helping you make your job easier. I'm helping you troubleshoot because a lot of this I know as cyber operators, we look at this many times and we're like, hey, I'm trying to look at this and the data and how do I protect? But all of that data that comes across, there's cyber data, but there's also operational data. Like some of the things that we would see is, hey, lack of redundancy, or, we thought it was redundant and there was a link that was broken, or there was a failed power supply, or there's a lot of that type of stuff that you can provide that helps them with troubleshooting, with uptime, with reliability, with, all of those types of things. And the more of that we can give them, it really helps them with the ROI and the justification behind these projects of why we're doing these things, instead of just costing them money and costing them more difficulty and making the process harder and all that kind of stuff. What is the value we can give them, and stop just always, as we said in the beginning, we don't always have to say because China is coming or nation state attackers or whatever. Those things are true, but that's not the only value that we can bring. There's a lot of really amazing tools. Like you just said, like you use your product to help them with with a segmentation and validation of configuration. It had nothing to do with cybersecurity. It's a side note of cybersecurity because they left the admin, password, but still you're helping them with a giant cutover project that made their jobs easier.
It's funny. Cybersecurity practitioners, we pin a badge to our chest and they're like, oh yeah, we're cyber. We're IT with good fundamentals, right? Like, look, some cool tools, right? Like the, deep packet inspection stuff, all the like those are cool tools for real. Yeah. But good hygiene, and it should be the most boring part of IT, and making sure we do these things correctly. And I think the word that we've been just like putting up a flag and running around with is resiliency. These sites are not resilient, and they're not resilient because their network backbone is just trash, and we've let it be trash. And now, unfortunately, rather than normal processes of build, we have to come in with the big scary cyber thing to improve those things.
Right.
Yeah. Which is it's backward, but we're here. So let's just keep going.
Yeah, there's so many times, especially in the beginning, like I said, when we'd go to these sites and I had no budget. So I was having to go to a plant, not only convince them to let me do the things that I wanted to do, but also, hey, by the way, you're paying for it. And that means you're taking $200,000 or $300,000 out of the outage of this power plant that you have coming up, which means you're not building, you're not replacing boiler tubes, or you're not doing maintenance on this fan pump or something like that, which they weren't happy about, because those things would help with their efficiency, their reliability. So it was an uphill battle. We weren't popular that first year, but after that fact, we got some funding and we were able to actually provide them some value that became an easier conversation down the road.
It's funny. We had a conversation with a client. This morning was the resolution, but about 6 months ago, he was like, I don't understand. I went over there and I talked to these guys and I said, hey, do you have a Windows machine, a Windows XP thing? We have to go patch it. And he was like, yeah, they kicked me out. I don't know what's up. And then he said he went back and he said, hey, you've got a Windows XP machine. It's running this version of software. It's got these threat campaigns that are running against the device. We see those in the wild, not here. It's got these ports open. It's got this MAC address. It's running this process. And then he got allowed in. And it was like, did you know what you did? And he was like, you communicated to them on their level. You told them you were able to come in and adequately communicate what's the problem and not just firing up random data points that have no anchor, right? Of course they have Windows XP machine. Give me something more tangible. And then he got invited back.
Right. But that's part of the whole ploy with us, right? Is building those relationships. I know we keep circling back around to that, right? The technology is the easy part. And what I mean by that is that, yes, I can roll in any technology, but it's the people in the process side of those things. It doesn't matter if your product is the best. If the people on site don't use it, or they don't let you install it or configure it, or they cut it out after you leave, it doesn't matter, right? You have to build the why. Like, nobody wants something done to them. They want to be part of the process and understand, why are we doing this? Make sure you understand my use case, my concerns, how I do business, so that you're not trying to make me do things your way. I'm the one sitting here that's going to be here when you leave. So make sure you hear how I do business, fit your thing into my way of working as much as possible, because I'm going to be the one holding the fort when you're gone.
The analogy I use is a sports one, and the security teams get to pick what sport we play, meaning patch management, meaning vulnerabilities, threat detection, whatever. And then sites get to pick where and when we play. So they get to pick a stadium, they get to pick the time of year. And you're not going to do that on a chocolate supplier going into Halloween. Just not going to do that. Don't ask. And if you can show them that little modicum of respect, you obviously you aren't going to get just ceremoniously kicked out. But see, that also settled people down, because I think my old company did risk assessments. I think we had 1,800 controls that we measured. You're probably somewhere similar. You can't take on more than 1 or 2 OT projects a year. I don't care how mature your company is. Those are really hard, big projects. You think, and getting to 1,800 changes, that's not going to happen. So let's pick on the things we can do and be pragmatic on the political capital we use to lower risk.
Right. So what are some of the things that you're excited about with product, with we've already talked about, kind of a progress as far as people actually rolling out and doing more, but from a technology side, you hinted on it with some of the SaaS stuff and the things in the cloud. Like, what are some of the other things that you're excited that you see actually taking hit and people being excited and actually implementing, not just talking about it, not just, having a PowerPoint presentation about it, but people actually deploying and seeing real value with?
It's the operation of this stuff. I think I scared the hell out of a kid in Texas last year. He was a recent grad. He was at a conference somewhere, and he was a recent graduate from University of North Texas. He had an automation engineering degree, and he had a cybersecurity minor. And I was like, "You're the first." I was like, "You're the first of our kind. We didn't just accidentally make you. Like, you didn't walk out of networking and end up in OT, right?" He didn't quite know what to do with me, so I hope that kid's listening somewhere. We never had a plan on how to do the governance for this, and we went tech first, right? And that was a mistake. So I think what I'm seeing now is a lot more organizations are really putting wood behind the arrow on the governance side. I think we have a big policy library that we'll hand out, right? I know your company will go customize those things and make policies real and get that governance thing rolling. That is such a big first part. I'm so ashamed that I get excited about policy books. Like when I'm like, "Hey, what do you have? Like, let me see what's in your library. Like, I want to see what you," because I think that is like the foundational element that really sets up OT for success when we can tell people. And look, our engineers are deterministic people. They want to know there's a rule. And in an absence of a rule, they're going to do whatever they want because it's what. So once we start to color in the lines there, then we get to some other really exciting stuff. But yeah, RACIs. RACIs are my favorite. I love RACIs. My little Slack guy, it says R is for RACI. That's how I define myself inside of Claroty. Again, back to this other point of like committing what part of your ass is going to be on the line. And this is what we need. And building those out at scale. The best, I would say the top 11 clients I have. So a specific number. I just threw one out. It was 12. They have really well established rules of the road written down in RACIs, and they commit to it, really, really good at it. And they populate them, they hand them out, they post them on the walls. They're doing as much as they can in that vein. And it's not a shocker when they have more people coming to them because so that's the really fun stuff. We're doing a champions toolkit, which I'm really excited about, where we've actually built some RACIs. The kind that I like, everyone's got their own like flavor of RACI, right? We like to do a couple layers. We do one per use case at Claroty, right? That's not earth-shaking news that we're a little selfish in that. We'll do a top level like governance RACI. Like this is what needs to happen in all of OT from network to wherever and organizing all that. Then we'll break it down by subcategory, right? Threat management, we'll do exposure management, we'll do some network strategies, and we'll do, oh, there's one missing. Anyway, we've pre-built all those and are building them so clients can go through, rip that down and say, "Oh yeah, we didn't think about this persona," or "Why would that person only be a consult?" And so we want to make that a resource we can mobilize.
No, that's awesome. And it really comes down to, again, the other theme that I hear us talking about constantly is it's people, process, and technology. Like, yes, the technology matters, but only if it's implemented well and only if you know how to implement it and where it needs to be done and the right way to implement it. Because as we've seen, I know you've probably seen as much as I have, you can go to one company and they can have 50 sites and every site is a little bit different. And I have to implement it a little bit different. And the RACI is going to be different. And my response is different. Like all of these things are different because many times they're almost individual, and many times they are individual business units where they're ran differently. Their structure is a little bit different and they have complete autonomy to kind of do things within their, those instructions that they have. And many times those instructions are fairly vague for those types of folks. The real thing is run safe, make money. As long as you're making it within those things, like, it's your site. Do what you want with it, right? And obviously there's some exceptions to that around some things, but that's where I've seen a lot. Like you go to a power plant for a company, Duke Energy or Southern or whatever, and you go to two power plants, they could be 10 miles down the road from each other, and they are completely different. They were built at the same time. They have different control systems. They have different processes. They have different purchasing processes. Like everything is vastly different in the same company. Then they've both been at the power plants for this company for 30, 40 years, right? So it's not like they bought one last week and the other one was old. It's just that vastly different. So, that people side and the process side of things, I would argue is more important. Close your ear, vendor people, including you, Sean, more important than the tech that you choose, because I'd rather you have shitty tech that you implement well than the best tech that you don't implement well. Cause you can't, it's like Claroty's the Ferrari, but if you take all the wheels off and pour diesel in it, it's not going to work.
Yeah. I tell you what, that power plant example is really ringing true for me right now. We saw it really diligently with distribution centers during COVID because everyone was building a new Amazon distribution center, a new Target, new Walmart, whatever. And we thought that would be just cookie cutter, but there wasn't enough automation equipment in the world to do what Amazon wanted to do. So every one of them ended up being a science experiment, which is pretty crazy. So you can go to one fulfillment center to another, and they could be totally different things made in the same month. About the same people, not even different. And then we're seeing that too with data centers, right? This drive towards AI and like the time to power piece and all the AI native data centers that are running those GPUs, again, can't build those fast enough. So they're going out just, stripping everything out of Schneider Electric and saying, we'll take whatever you have. Does it produce power or coolant? We're good. Bring it on, put it on the bus. So a lot of those are starting to be kind of Franken builds. And then the data center ones are interesting because they're building so fast that you're not going to stop and make sure that back to that trust but verify piece, they're building so fast, they're going to put something in and you really need to check. Because not because the people don't know what they're doing, but just the element of time and how they have to hit those marks, then that verify piece is really, really important. And we've been sitting in a lot of those builds and yeah, same old thing with credentials and leaving back doors open and things like that you just need to do. That's a fundamental. We talked earlier. That's a hygiene thing. And if you build fast, you're going to lose hygiene. I tell my kids
we're human, right? We're going to make mistakes, right? No matter how you're working long hours, you're doing the same thing. It's repetitive, like all that type of stuff. We're going to make mistakes. It's not necessarily intentional, but there's a lot of factors. There's a lot of hands in the cookie jar. Hey, I thought Steve did that. He thought you did that. Like it's just the way that it goes. And especially as these things go up so fast, and all it takes is one of those things to go bad. That it can bring the whole site down or cause issue or damage and then there's all of these, cascading effects of issues that we have and they're way more expensive to fix after the fact as opposed to trying to fix them and keep up with them and verify along the way. So how do you keep up with that speed and verify, like with all of that, with so many changes and so many types of equipment and so much going on at the same time? Like, how are y'all finding success and being that validation?
That part's actually kind of the easiest part. The data that at scale, even if you're building fast and building kind of crazy, right? The backdoors and the fundamentals are usually a pretty easy check, right? Especially around like third party risk, especially around like north-south egress points. You can get a lot of those big rock use cases that are just the really big things that are going to bite you in the butt. You can get those out pretty quick and do those at scale. Some of the more minutia things are going to take a little longer, are going to be things you want to spend a little more time on, but that's in the run state, right? The one I always think about that is my least favorite alert is new device detected. Because in some theater, like in food production, a chicken poultry plant's going to have a new device every single day from Rockwell. Every day. Data center? Probably not. So using that alert right and really fine tuning what you care about, that's where I want to see like 6-month maturity. Let's get the things you want populating in your SIM and not pull all the rest of the stuff over if you're not even going to look at it. Or worse, it's going to force a tier 1 SOC engineer. Let's not bring that over. You don't need that.
It's lessons from the trenches. So many times we'll be at a power plant and we're replacing a keyboard for an operator. And because there's one key that's not working on it, and it's always the mute key because the alarms are going off. So they just reach over and they hit the mute and they hit the mute and they hit the mute all fucking day long. And that key breaks because they hit it so hard. They're annoyed. It's 3:00 in the morning. It keeps alarming. They just keep muting it because it's going to an outage or whatever, or they haven't fixed it and nobody's gone out to turn the valve off or whatever the thing is. So they just keep muting the alarm and the keys break. It's ironic and funny, but it's true. Cause if the alarms go off so much and you get that alarm fatigue and you just flood them with all the things that are wrong, then it means nothing. Like they can't do anything with that. Like there's no way that a human can process, or anyone, even a system is going to be able to process that and allow us to make a decision on what to do about those things.
Yeah. So you're saying the HMI screen is literally like fuzzed out and worn out from where they touch it when they alarm. That's really funny. I'm going to look at that next time you walk into a production theater. Like how worn out is that button? That's a good problem. Alarm. Yeah,
it really happens, and it's sad. It's funny. And then I get the other side, and I've told this story before, but you get the operator rounds, and this again, it goes into the human performance side of things, and we want people to check on things. So talk about that trust but verify, right? So we have all of these systems. We have digital monitors, and we're getting temperature and pressure and valve open or closed or whatever the thing is that we're monitoring. But we also have operators that we want walking around and checking the process and making sure that everything is is good and it's working. And a good operator can tell by look, feel, touch, smell, like all those types of things as they're walking through, because they've done it so often. They know what good looks like. They know what to, and that, to your point, they know when something is out of the ordinary, and that's when you want them in. You want them to check that as soon as possible, because many times they're going to find something before the sensor tells you that there's something wrong. An operator's going to find it.
So that was the original IPS tool, was the operator, like the hair on the back of his neck would be, they feel that hermosity.
Yeah. 100%. But when you don't do it right, and then you over engineers or even management starts building a whole bunch of checks, so they would start having almost busy work, because you don't want your operators sitting around playing dominoes. So you give them additional tasks to do, because you don't want to pay them to sit around and do nothing. I walked in and found operators playing dominoes at lunch, and I'm sitting down and I'm actually checking the operator round system, right? The handhelds, the Motorola things, and they have RFID tags throughout the plant. And the rounds, they just weren't accurate, and we weren't exactly sure why. We're trying to figure all this out. And I literally sat there and watched an operator as he's playing dominoes, eating his lunch, lean back and an RFID tag, do something on his Motorola and set it down. A couple minutes later, he does it again. A couple minutes later, he does it again. He had copied all the RFID tags for his entire round. And there was an RFID tag for all like 25 or whatever stops in this particular round that was just stupid in his mind. So he would just reach back and scan the tag and enter some bullshit data in the system. And he did the entire round without ever leaving the lunchroom. And when I talked to him about it, I'm like, why are you doing this? And he was like, I've been doing this round for 3 years, and nobody's ever, like, no matter what data we put into it, nobody's looking at it. It's just, nobody cares. They just want us to do this so that we're not sitting in here. And we know that because we put in fake data. We've had things break. Nobody's ever done anything about it. Right. So it was an aha moment for me, but it was also an aha moment that I had to go explain to the leadership why it was going on. And it was really their fault why it was happening, and how can we fix it so that the operator sees value in the round, instead of him just thinking it's busy work that is no value to him or anyone for that.
Yeah. And I really hate they just expect me to do this.
Correct.
That like hurts my soul. At least they're playing dominoes, though. It could be worse.
That's true.
You want to know exactly how many gaming systems I can see right now?
How many?
Let's play a game. We're gonna play hot or cold.
Okay.
Roughly in Claroty, we see about 50 million assets.
Okay.
How many gaming systems? I'm not going to tell you the exact number because I don't know if we can, but I'll tell you high, low, or not even close. Gaming systems, how many?
50 million you can see. Let's go with 500,000.
Way lower than that.
Okay.
Yep.
10,000.
Closer, much closer. You're in the ballpark now. Now, the question is, what is the difference between hospital and industrial? Industrial is about 1% of that. So we still are seeing switches and Xboxes and industrial stuff. But in the hospital side, we're seeing a ton. Now, that's not surprising, right? Because we have a lot of children's hospitals. But then when we do another look, and it's like, how many of those are on the appropriate guest network or, segmented off? It's just sitting on the named flat network. And hospitals are pretty notorious for that too. I know we talk about industrial a lot, but that's a pretty funny data point.
Yeah,
all right, what is the most common gaming system?
PlayStation?
I gotta look at my notes. Okay, we're gonna go industrial because I think that's an important split.
Okay.
Nope, not PlayStation. Industrial is Xbox.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, I read the wrong line. Nintendo. It's a lot of switches in the industrial. 2/3 of them are switches.
Wow.
And then Sony and Sony and Microsoft for PlayStation and Xbox are kind of tied.
Yeah, how much of that is streaming? I just watched or listened to the Darknet Diaries talking about the streaming box that everybody has. That
yeah. I did that and I was like, I'm gonna go check this bad box thing. That's not interesting. I haven't looked yet, and I'm going to.
Yeah.
But there's going to be some of those. The one that actually has been interesting to watch it rise has been the Steam platform, and watching that grow in market share inside of our critical infrastructure. That's been pretty.
Well, yeah, because they can install that on a Windows machine, so they don't even have to bring in a box. They can install it on something that they have admin rights on. Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Is this fun?
Yes.
All right, smartwatches.
Oh, they're connecting smartwatches to the network now. Oh, that's terrifying. It's got to be Apple Watches, right? And probably there's got to be thousands of those.
There's a lot of Apple Watches.
Yeah.
It's north of 30,000.
Wow.
Within with a very large component that have not had a security update since 2023. 40-ish% are like Apple Watch 3 and older, so they don't have any more patches left.
No patches. Still wearing them, still rocking them, connecting them to the corporate network or the OT network, even industrialized. Like, wow, that is terrifying. I mean, I went to the Pentagon and had to take my watch off and put it in a box, and it wasn't even an Apple Watch. It was just a Garmin and has no Wi-Fi or anything like that, but they still made me put it away just because I couldn't walk in the room with it.
Garmin was surprisingly fewer. We do still see them in there, but they weren't. I wear Garmin. I think a lot of people do them for the exercising and all that. They were shocking few on the Wi-Fi network. I think most of those are going through your phone, which phones are another disaster. But all right, let's do one more. Pick which car you think is most often installed. I'll give you a couple options: Tesla, Hyundai, or Ford.
I was going to say Tesla or Ford F-150 because those are probably the most common cars. I'm going to go with Ford just. Yeah. And industrial for Ford truck, probably. That'd be my guess.
Those two are the two most popular that are on the industrial Wi-Fi networks. None of them are on the guest network. Not none, but they're not not the right number.
Right.
And they're about neck and neck, actually. I think some of that is a population bias because a lot of our manufacturing sites are usually in the middle of the country, more F-150 country. The interesting one was we didn't see a lot, and we're trying to figure out why, but we didn't see a ton of Chevy, which is interesting. I thought Chevy and Dodge would have been a little higher up there, but I think they've got like an OnStar thing that's a different network. So
right.
Yeah, some of those were
I didn't even think about putting my truck onto the wireless network at work. Like I never would have thought. I connect it maybe at home, but I would never think about doing that at work. Wow, that is crazy. I've seen phones plugged into SCADA systems with USB. I've seen Linksys access points plugged in. I've seen streaming devices, Amazon and all the different types of devices, Apple TVs, things like that are plugged in and somehow working on some back network. I've even seen them plug in a wireless card directly to a PLC or a SCADA system because they needed remote access. So they just plug it directly into the internet, bypass everything.
Phones are a tough one to look at because a lot of people now are the spots have been digitally transformed. And I'm thinking, retail and distribution centers really coming to mind today. I don't know why. But we do see a lot of very legitimate iPad usage and iPhone usage. You're doing the scans and the checks instead of having the old zebra gun. Man, now you're doing it with your phone.
100%.
So we do see some of those, and that one's a harder, like those other canaries in the coal mine, right? Those are just used, to show the message, right? If we can't solve our patching problem on our turbine controls, if we can't solve the bad cameras and the stupid things in the network, right? Yeah, it's a canary in the coal mine. It's a little funny.
Yeah.
So that iPhone problem is going to be one I don't know how that one. That's an individual company conversation, right? Do we let companies do this or not? And I think by vertical, that'll be a little different, right? Because, turbine controls, no. Refineries, no. Retail spots, different.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun data to play with.
Yeah, it is. But, in a healthy environment, that's where you would have a BYOD network. You would have a segmented network. You would never allow, and I would never allow anything else to connect wirelessly or wired or anything to my OT network or my critical infrastructure control network type environments. Have a guest network, have an IoT device. And that's where sometimes I see the cyber thing coming too hard, and that we say, no, you're not allowed to connect your phone at work. Well, they just find a way around it. It's better to give them a safe place to put it instead of telling them no, because usually they're going to find a way anyways. So you might as well give them a good place to go. So that way you can monitor it. You can make sure that they're not trying to connect it to the place you don't want them to connect it to.
And most of the problems with our devices on the wrong network, most of that's because we made the corporate network or the IoT network too hard to find. They forget the password. There's like this, you got to go through a portal of some kind, but they know hard code how to get something onto the OT corporate network. So that is a IT configuration problem. We've made it hard to do it the right way.
Yep.
So if we can do that more, and look, ClearPass and all those things are much better than they were 3 or 4 years ago. So I think there's some hope in that kind of stuff. That's for sure.
For sure. So what is one thing you see coming up that you're excited about? What's one thing that's concerning in the space that we play in?
Excited. I used to talk about everything in 5 years, and everything was kind of like 5 years out. And the 5 years out are starting to come through, like digital transformation projects, hitting, right? The value of using the data under these systems is starting to come to fruition. Like all that stuff is starting, like that big data projects are starting to come and they're starting to flow and people are being more efficient. And I think that's really, really progressive. I think
That's
that
awesome.
it also leads into the other scary part. Like, did you see Anthropic's news yesterday on the is it Project Mythos? I can't pronounce it.
Mm-hmm.
So now we can find vulnerabilities using AI engines and using Anthropic. So we have like a 15-to-1 device to vulnerability, meaning every device we see, depending on the vertical, has about 15 CVEs tied to it. And that's coming from old school researchers, like hammering out stuff. Yeah, using some automated scripting, of course. But we had a 15-to-1.
Yeah.
So now we're going to turn Anthropic on the world and go find a bunch more vulnerabilities. And I don't think we're ready for that. I don't think we can handle a 200-to-1. That'll wreck us.
Yeah, and AI definitely makes things easier. So, I mean, the things that you can do with it, you can stand up a website in all code and push it to GitHub and publish it in an hour, right? With no coding skills whatsoever and have it look good and professional. You can make products. People are vibe coding. I've seen so many OT products where people are posting out there, hey, we've got this OT scanning vulnerability thing and it's free. Okay, I'm not putting that in my OT space. Like that's a whole nother, we talked about gaming systems and all that kind of stuff. Like I'm not putting your vibe coded system into my OT environment. Like I don't care how free, how good it is. I'm not doing that. And there's a reason behind that. I want my products vetted and understand. I want to have a good understanding of what products are in it. What are the dependencies? What are the libraries? I mean, Log4j, like all the things that we've seen. Have we not learned from our mistakes?
Boy, but there's some value though. If you can optimize them and you can find the one little needle in the haystack that you couldn't do on your own through trial and error, going down the register and coil level and like all that stuff, you can do that better. They're going to do it.
100%. And that's where we've got to have, it goes back to what we just talked about with the wireless, even with AI, like we can't just say no to AI. We have to know that these engineers, that these people are going to use these things and these tools because it helps. Right. And they can do their job faster and more effectively. So how do we do those things without saying just no? It's not just a flat no. It's like, why was the preacher's daughter always the one that was the craziest? Because you told her no all the whole time and then she found a way around it. Right. It's no different than this. Right. If you just tell them no, they're going to find a way. And so find a way that we can do it in an effective way, a safe way, a way that keeps things monitored and understood and set those boundaries and barricades and say, hey, this is the sandbox you can do this in. These are the types of things. Go do this over there. And then that's okay. Right. And then you can monitor it. There's other ways that you can look at it, but you don't want them doing that on a control system in production live, connecting to the cloud with no barricades.
Yeah. And, I think there's two kinds of people that use AI. There's people who have a great creative prompt and they use AI to make it better. That's what we need in critical infrastructure. We don't need the second type. It's like, I'm just going to recreate my job with this. And I'm not going to put any effort into this thing. And I'm going to let it do what it wants to do. And I think the people that are going to give it really creative prompts and really, really guarded by knowledge are going to really take advantage of that stuff and do well with it. But that's going to be one.
Agreed. Awesome, man. So call to action. What do you want people to know? How can they find out more about you, about Claroty, all the things?
Me, I'm really active on LinkedIn. It's depressingly on my screen up here all the time. We have that OT Champions Toolkit coming out. That's going to be pretty cool. And that's free resources for people, free resources for consulting types to go make perfect for clients. And so that's going to be out there soon. We just talked about like the retirement of people. I published a white paper called The Most Dangerous Man at the Plant, which is about the silver tsunami and how the people that built this infrastructure are retiring. They're being replaced by.
Awesome. Well, we'll put those in the show notes. Definitely check out Sean, check out Claroty, all the things that they're doing. Again, a lot of times in OT, it's not always the sexy thing. It's sometimes the basics of just doing the right things right, and implementing those things well. And that can make the biggest difference. All right, man. I appreciate your time. Thanks for chatting with me, and thanks for keeping up the good fight. All right.
Thanks for joining us on Protect It All, where we explore the crossroads of IT and OT cybersecurity. Remember to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts to stay ahead in this ever-evolving field. Until next time.